My name is Meera, and for 32 years my son Noah was my entire world. People often tell me that a mother's love has no limits. I never understood what they meant until life tested me in ways I never imagined. When my husband passed away, Noah was only 6 years old. I still remember that cold, rainy evening when I stood beside my husband's grave, holding Noah's tiny hand. At that moment I made a promise to myself. No matter how hard life becomes, my son will never feel the absence of his father. From that day on I lived only for him. I worked wherever I could. During the day I stitched clothes for people in our neighborhood. At night I cleaned offices after everyone had gone home. There were many nights when I pretended I wasn't hungry so Noah could eat one more piece of bread. I never complained. Every sacrifice felt worthwhile whenever I saw my little boy smile. Years passed and my hard work finally paid off. Noah graduated from college with honors and landed a wonderful job in another city. The day he hugged me before leaving, he looked into my eyes and said, "Mom, you've struggled enough. From today, it's my turn to take care of you." I cried with happiness because I truly believed every difficult day of my life was finally over. About a year later, Noah called me with exciting news. "Mom, I'm getting married." Her name was Sophia. The first time I met her, she hugged me tightly and said, "I've always wanted a mother like you." Those words melted my heart. I thanked God for blessing my son with such a kind woman. Or at least, that's what I believed. I had no idea that the woman smiling in front of me would one day convince my own son to betray the person who had sacrificed everything for him. If someone had told me then that my own son would one day introduce me as his maid, I would have called them a liar. But life has a cruel way of revealing the truth. And my nightmare was only beginning. After Noah married Sophia, I stayed in my little house alone. The silence felt strange at first, but I kept myself busy. Every morning, I watered the flowers my husband had planted years ago. Every evening I sat on the porch with a cup of tea, waiting for Noah's phone call. Whenever he called he sounded happy. "Mom, work is going well. Mom, you'll love this city. Mom, don't worry about me." Hearing his voice was enough to brighten my day. Then one evening, Noah called with unusual excitement. "Mom, why are you living alone? Sophia and I have been talking. We want you to come live with us." I smiled. "Oh, sweetheart, I don't want to disturb your new life." Before Noah could answer, Sophia took the phone. "Mom, please don't say that. You're family. Besides, rent and household expenses are very high here. If we all live together, we'll save money and we'll get to spend more time with you." Her words touched my heart. I thought how lucky I am. My daughter-in-law truly cares about me. Noah added, "Mom, you've taken care of me all your life. Now it's my turn to take care of you." I couldn't stop smiling. For days, I happily packed my belongings. Every room in my house held memories. The kitchen where Noah and I baked cookies together. The hallway where I marked his height every birthday. His old bedroom still filled with trophies and photographs. As I packed, I gently touched the walls. "This house gave us a beautiful life," I whispered. I locked the front door, believing I'd return one day. With tears in my eyes and hope in my heart, I left. When I arrived at Noah and Sophia's apartment, they welcomed me with hugs. "Mom," Sophia said cheerfully as she embraced me. Noah carried my bags inside himself. For the first week, I truly believed I had made the right decision. Sophia cooked my favorite meals. Noah insisted I relax. Every evening we sat together, laughed, watched movies and shared stories. I thanked God every night. My son kept his promise, I prayed. But happiness can disappear quietly. One Monday morning, Sophia knocked on my bedroom door. "Mom, would you mind making breakfast today? I have an early meeting." "Of course," I replied with a smile. The next morning she asked again. Then she asked me to prepare lunch. A few days later, dinner became my responsibility too. Soon I was cooking every meal. Then came the laundry, the dishes, sweeping the floors, cleaning the bathrooms, dusting every room, shopping for groceries, ironing clothes. I told myself they were both working hard and I wanted to help. After all, that's what mothers do. But slowly, helping became my full-time job. I woke up before sunrise to prepare breakfast. I cleaned the apartment from top to bottom. I cooked fresh meals every day. By the time Noah and Sophia came home from work, I was exhausted. Still, I greeted them with a smile. I hoped they noticed how much I loved them. Instead, they started noticing only my mistakes. One evening, Sophia frowned as soon as she walked in. "The floor isn't clean enough." The next day she complained. "My white shirt isn't ironed properly." Another day she snapped. "Why is dinner 10 minutes late?" Every complaint pierced my heart. Noah heard everything. I waited for him to defend me. Instead, he simply stayed silent. His silence hurt me more than Sophia's words ever could. That was the moment I realized my son was changing. And I feared I was beginning to lose him. I kept telling myself that things would get better. Every morning I looked at Noah and remembered the little boy who used to run into my arms after school. "Mom, I'm hungry." "Mom, look what I made today." Those memories gave me the strength to keep going. So I ignored the pain in my heart. I convinced myself that Sophia was just under a lot of stress and that Noah was busy with work. But as the weeks passed, their kindness disappeared completely. I wasn't treated like a mother anymore. I was treated like someone who worked for them. Every morning before sunrise, I prepared breakfast. After that, I cleaned every room, washed dishes, did the laundry, ironed their clothes, and cooked lunch before rushing to prepare dinner. Sometimes I didn't sit down until late at night. My back ached. My knees hurt. But I never complained. Whenever Noah came home, I smiled and asked, "How was your day, son?" Most of the time he barely looked at me. "It's fine," he would say before walking into his room. His words became shorter. His hugs disappeared. Sometimes I wondered if he even noticed I was there. One afternoon, I accidentally dropped a glass while washing dishes. It shattered across the kitchen floor. Sophia stormed in. "What is wrong with you?" she shouted. "I'm sorry," I whispered. My hand slipped. She folded her arms. "Do you know how expensive that glass was?" Before I could answer, Noah walked into the kitchen. For one brief moment I thought he would comfort me. Instead, he looked at me and sighed. "Mom, please be more careful." That was all he said. Not once did he ask if I had cut my hand. I quietly picked up the broken pieces, even though a small piece of glass had sliced my finger. The blood dripped onto the floor. I hid my hand behind my back so they wouldn't see. That night, I cried silently into my pillow. Not because of the cut, because I finally understood that my son no longer saw me the way he once had. A few days later, Sophia announced that they were hosting a housewarming party. "My coworkers and some important clients are coming," she said. "I want everything to be perfect." Then she handed me a long list. "I need you to cook all of this." The list seemed endless. Roasted chicken, lasagna, mashed potatoes, salads, desserts, fresh bread, cookies, drinks. I spent 2 full days preparing everything. My feet were swollen. My hands were sore. But I wanted Noah to be proud of me. The evening of the party finally arrived. Guests filled the apartment with laughter. Everyone admired the decorations and complimented the delicious food. I stayed quietly in the kitchen, making sure every plate was full. As I carried another tray into the dining room, a smiling woman looked at me. "The food is amazing," she said kindly. "Are you Noah's mother?" Before I could answer, I looked at my son. Surely he would smile and say, "Yes, this is my mom." Instead, Noah laughed awkwardly and said words that shattered my heart. "Oh, she's just our maid." For a moment, the room became completely silent. I couldn't breathe. The tray in my hands trembled. Several guests looked at me with pity. Others looked away, embarrassed. Sophia smiled as if nothing had happened. Noah simply continued talking to his guests. As though I were invisible. As though I had never sacrificed my life for him. At that moment I realized something painful. The boy I had raised with endless love was gone. And standing before me was a stranger. That night, after the last guest left, I quietly washed every plate, every glass, and every pot by myself. Noah and Sophia had already gone to bed. As always, when I finally finished cleaning, it was almost 2 in the morning. I walked into my small room, closed the door, and sat on the edge of the bed. For the first time in my life, I asked myself a question I never thought I would ask. Where did I go wrong? I had given my son everything. My youth, my dreams, my health, every dollar I earned. every prayer I ever whispered. And yet, tonight, he had looked into my eyes and called me his maid. I held an old photograph of Noah when he was 6 years old. He was smiling with 2 missing front teeth, hugging me tightly outside the little house we had called home for so many years. I kissed the picture and cried until I had no tears left. The next morning I woke up with swollen eyes. I still made breakfast. Old habits are hard to break. Sophia walked into the kitchen without even saying good morning. The coffee is cold. That was the first thing she said. Not, how are you? Not, did you sleep well? Just another complaint. I quietly made another cup. A few days later, I decided to visit my old neighborhood. I'd like to check on my house, I told Noah. Before he could answer, Sophia quickly said, "Oh, Mom, there's no need. The neighbors are looking after it." Her answer felt strange. For the first time, I noticed the nervous look she exchanged with Noah. Something didn't feel right. That night I couldn't sleep. The next morning, while Noah and Sophia were at work, I called my neighbor, Mrs. Wilson. She had lived next door for over 20 years. When she answered, she sounded surprised. "Meera? Where have you been?" "I've been living with Noah," I replied. "How's my house?" There was silence. Then she asked softly, "Your house?" "Yes." I thought. "You sold it." My heart stopped. "What did you say?" "The moving truck came about 3 weeks ago. A young couple moved in. Everyone said your son handled the sale." The phone slipped from my hand. I couldn't breathe. I kept repeating one sentence over and over. "No. That's impossible. Noah would never do something like that. Not my son. Not the little boy I had raised. There had to be some mistake." As soon as Noah came home that evening, I stood in the living room waiting for him. My hands were shaking. "Noah, I spoke to Mrs. Wilson today." His smile disappeared. I looked straight into his eyes. "She said my house has been sold." For several seconds he said nothing. Then he lowered his head. Before he could speak, Sophia stepped forward. "We were going to tell you." I stared at her in disbelief. "Tell me what?" Noah finally spoke in a quiet voice. "Mom, I sold the house." The room spun around me. "You what?" He wouldn't even look at me. "We needed the money." I felt my knees grow weak. "You sold the home your father built. The home I spent 30 years paying for. Without asking me?" Sophia crossed her arms. "You weren't living there anymore. It was just sitting empty." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. "That house was in my name," I whispered. "It was my home." Noah finally looked at me. "We're family, Mom. What's yours is ours." That moment, something inside me broke forever. Not because I had lost a house, but because I realized I had lost my son. What Noah and Sophia didn't know was that the story wasn't over. The papers they thought made them victorious would soon become the reason they lost everything. I didn't scream. I didn't argue. I simply walked into my room and closed the door. For hours I sat in complete silence. The betrayal hurt more than losing my house. A house can be rebuilt. But when your own child breaks your trust, the pain settles deep inside your heart. That night I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about every memory that house held. It wasn't just a building. It was where Noah took his first steps. It was where I celebrated every birthday with him. It was where I whispered goodbye to my husband for the last time. And now, it was gone. The next morning I made a decision. I would stop crying. If Noah and Sophia believed I was weak, I would let them keep believing it. From that day on, I acted as though I had accepted everything. I smiled. I cooked. I cleaned. I said nothing about the house. Sophia looked pleased. I knew she'd get over it. I once heard her whisper to Noah. They thought I had given up. They were wrong. A week later, while cleaning the study, I noticed a file sticking out of a drawer. It had my name on it. Curiosity got the better of me. I opened it. Inside were copies of documents related to my house. As I turned the pages, my hands began to shake. There was a sale agreement, bank papers, property records. Then I reached the final page. It contained a signature. My signature. But I had never signed those papers. Someone had forged my name. I stared at the page for several minutes. Tears filled my eyes, not from sadness this time but from shock. They hadn't simply betrayed me. They had committed a crime. I quietly took photos of every page with my old phone and returned the file exactly where I had found it. That evening, Noah came home smiling. "Mom, dinner smells great." For the first time in months, he spoke kindly to me. I realized why. He believed there was nothing left for him to fear. After dinner, I called my oldest friend, Anita. She had been beside me through every difficult chapter of my life. When I told her everything, she was silent for a long moment. Finally, she said, "Meera, you have spent your whole life protecting Noah. Now it's time to protect yourself." Her words stayed with me all night. The next morning, while Noah and Sophia were at work, I quietly left the apartment. For the first time since moving to the city, I wasn't going to the grocery store. I was going to speak with a lawyer. As I walked toward the office, my heart was pounding. I wasn't looking for revenge out of hatred. I wanted justice, not only for my house, but for the mother who had spent 32 years loving a son who no longer valued her. I took a deep breath, opened the lawyer's office door, and stepped inside. I had no idea that this single decision would change all of our lives forever. The lawyer's office was quiet. As I sat in the waiting room, my hands wouldn't stop shaking. Part of me still hoped there had been some misunderstanding. I didn't want to believe my own son had done something so terrible. A few minutes later, the lawyer welcomed me into his office. He smiled kindly. "Please have a seat. How can I help you today?" I took a deep breath and placed my phone on his desk. "I think my son sold my house without my permission." His expression immediately became serious. I showed him every photograph I had taken of the documents. He carefully examined each page. After several minutes, he looked up at me. "Mrs. Meera, are you absolutely certain this is not your signature?" I nodded without hesitation. "I've signed my name thousands of times in my life. This isn't my handwriting." He compared the signatures again. Then he quietly said something that changed everything. "If what you're telling me is true, this property sale may have been completed using forged documents." I felt tears filling my eyes. "So, I haven't lost everything." He leaned forward. "Not necessarily, but we need evidence." For the next hour, he explained every legal step. He advised me not to confront Noah or Sophia again. "Let them believe you know nothing," he said. "The truth has a way of revealing itself when people become overconfident." I agreed. Before leaving, I signed the necessary paperwork so he could begin investigating the sale. As I stepped outside, I felt something I hadn't felt in months. Hope. For the first time since moving into Noah's apartment, I wasn't walking with my head down. I finally believed justice was possible. When I returned home, Sophia was sitting on the couch. "Where were you?" she asked suspiciously. "I went to the temple," I replied softly. She didn't ask another question. That evening, I cooked dinner just as I always had. I smiled. I spoke kindly. I behaved exactly as they expected. Inside, however, everything had changed. Over the following weeks, my lawyer quietly gathered records from the property office. He compared signatures. He collected witness statements. He traced the money from the sale. One afternoon, he called me. "Mrs. Meera, I have important news." My heart raced. "The house was legally registered only in your name." I closed my eyes. I had always known that. My husband had insisted the house should belong to me because he worried about my future. The lawyer continued, "Your son had no legal authority to sell it without your written permission." I could barely speak. "What happens now?" He answered calmly, "We're filing a lawsuit." I looked out the window. The sky was gray, just like the day I buried my husband. Back then, I thought losing him would be the greatest pain of my life. I was wrong. Being betrayed by my own child hurt far more. But this time, I wasn't the helpless widow everyone expected me to be. This time, I was ready to fight. And Noah and Sophia had no idea that every lie they had told was about to be exposed in court. A few weeks after filing the lawsuit, my lawyer called me. "Mrs. Meera," he said, "the court has accepted your case. Noah and Sophia will soon receive official notice." I closed my eyes. This was the moment I had been preparing for. Not because I wanted to punish my son, but because I wanted him to understand that love should never be mistaken for weakness. 3 days later, a court notice arrived at the apartment. I was in the kitchen making tea when someone knocked on the door. Sophia opened it. A court officer handed her an envelope. The moment she read the first page, her face turned pale. "Noah!" she shouted. He rushed into the living room. As he read the notice, his hands began to shake. This can't be happening." Sophia turned toward me. "You filed a lawsuit against us?" I looked at her calmly. "I filed a lawsuit to protect what was mine." Noah stared at me in disbelief. "Mom, why would you do this to your own son?" For a moment I almost cried. Then I remembered the night he called me his maid. I remembered every tear I had shed, every insult I had silently endured, every meal I had cooked while they treated me like a servant. I looked into his eyes and quietly asked, "Why did you do this to your own mother?" He couldn't answer. Sophia stepped forward. "We only sold the house because we needed the money." I shook my head. "If you had asked me with honesty, I might have helped you." Then I looked at Noah. "But you chose lies instead." The apartment fell silent. That evening, neither of them spoke to me. For the first time since I had moved in, they cooked their own dinner. The next morning, Noah came to my room. His eyes were red. "Mom, please withdraw the case." I looked at him. "Did you ask for my permission before selling my home?" He lowered his head. "No." "Did you tell your guests I was your mother?" He remained silent. "Did you treat me with the respect I deserved?" Tears rolled down his face. Still, he had no answers. I wasn't looking at the little boy I had raised anymore. I was looking at a grown man finally facing the consequences of his choices. A week later, we all walked into the courthouse. As I entered the courtroom, my heart beat faster than ever. The judge took his seat. The lawyers stood. Noah and Sophia sat across from me. Neither of them could meet my eyes. My lawyer stood and presented the evidence. The forged signature. The property records. The bank transfers. Every document was placed before the judge. Then came the most important question. The judge looked directly at Noah. "Did your mother personally authorize the sale of her house?" The entire courtroom became silent. Noah slowly looked toward me. For just a second, I saw the frightened little boy he once was. Then he lowered his head and quietly answered, "No, Your Honor." The courtroom gasped. In that single moment, the lies that Noah and Sophia had built began to collapse before everyone's eyes. When Noah admitted that he had never received my permission to sell my house, the courtroom became so quiet that I could hear my own heartbeat. I didn't feel happy. I didn't feel victorious. I only felt a deep sadness. I had never imagined that one day I would be sitting in a courtroom because of my own son. The judge looked at Sophia. "Did you know the property was registered only in Mrs. Meera's name?" Sophia hesitated. Then she quietly answered, "Yes." The judge frowned. "So you both knew that neither of you had the legal authority to sell the property." Neither of them said a word. Their silence spoke louder than any excuse. My lawyer then presented another piece of evidence. The handwriting expert's report. It confirmed that the signature on the sale documents was not mine. Someone had forged it. The judge carefully read every page before looking up. This court considers the alleged forgery a very serious matter. Sophia's face turned completely pale. Noah closed his eyes. For the first time, I saw genuine regret on his face. The judge announced that the property sale would be canceled, while the forgery investigation continued. The buyers would receive their money back through the legal process, and ownership of the house would return to me. Tears filled my eyes, not because I had one, but because the little home my husband and I had built with so much love would finally be mine again. As we walked out of the courtroom, Noah hurried toward me. "Mom, please." His voice trembled. "I'm sorry." I stopped walking. For a long moment, neither of us spoke. Then I asked him one question. "When your guests asked who I was, why didn't you tell them I was your mother?" Noah broke down crying. "I was embarrassed." Those 3 words hurt more than everything else. Embarrassed. The woman who had worked day and night to raise him. The woman who had gone hungry so he could eat. The woman who had sacrificed her entire life for him. Had become someone he was ashamed to call his mother. I felt tears running down my face. "I was never embarrassed to call you my son," I whispered. Noah fell to his knees. "I'm sorry, Mom. I made the biggest mistake of my life." Sophia stood a few steps away. She said nothing. For the first time since I had met her, she had no excuses. No lies. No arguments. Only silence. I looked at both of them calmly. I came to your home because I believed you loved me. My reward was becoming your maid. You didn't just take my house. You took my trust. Without another word, I turned around and walked away. Noah called after me again and again. But this time, I didn't look back. Some doors are too broken to close again. And some wounds take far longer to heal than any apology can fix. After the court hearing, I didn't return to Noah's apartment. I had spent enough nights crying in that small room. My lawyer helped me arrange a temporary place to stay while my house was being returned to me through the legal process. For the first time in months, I woke up in peace. No one shouted my name. No one handed me a list of chores. No one complained that breakfast was late. The silence felt different this time. It wasn't lonely. It was peaceful. A few weeks later, my lawyer called with wonderful news. Mrs. Meera, the court has officially restored ownership of your home to you. I closed my eyes and thanked God. The house that held my memories was finally coming back to me. When I unlocked the front door, tears filled my eyes. Everything looked different. The new owners had already moved out after the court's order. The rooms were empty, but to me, every wall still whispered memories. I walked slowly through the living room where Noah had taken his first steps. I stood in the kitchen where we had baked birthday cakes together. Then I entered his old bedroom. The height marks I had drawn on the wall were still there. I gently placed my hand over them. So many beautiful years, I whispered. I cried again. But these tears weren't only from pain. They were also from gratitude. I had been given a second chance to begin again. Over the next month, I cleaned the house myself. I planted fresh flowers in the garden. I painted the front door the same soft blue my husband had always loved. Little by little, the house began to feel like home again. One Sunday afternoon, someone knocked on my door. When I opened it, Noah was standing there. He looked nothing like the confident man who had once ignored my tears. His clothes were wrinkled. His eyes were swollen from crying. He had lost weight. In his hands was a small photo album. Without saying a word, he held it out to me. Inside were photographs from my entire life with him. Pictures of birthdays, school plays, Christmas mornings, family picnics. On the last page was a handwritten letter. Mom, every photograph reminds me of everything you gave me. I don't deserve your forgiveness. I listened to the wrong person. I became greedy. I forgot the woman who gave me everything. If you never forgive me, I will understand. But I will spend the rest of my life trying to become a son you can be proud of again. I love you, Noah. My hands trembled as I finished reading. I looked at my son. He wasn't asking for money. He wasn't asking for the house. He wasn't making excuses. For the first time, he accepted full responsibility for his choices. Even so, some wounds cannot be healed in a single day. I quietly folded the letter and looked into his eyes. I forgive you for my own peace, Noah. His eyes filled with hope. But before he could speak, I continued. Forgiveness does not erase consequences. You must earn back trust. And trust is rebuilt through years of actions, not one apology. Noah nodded as tears rolled down his face. I understand, Mom. He turned and slowly walked away. As I watched him leave, I prayed that one day he would truly become the kind, honest man I had always believed he could be. Months passed after Noah left my house that afternoon. Life slowly became peaceful again. Every morning, I opened my windows and watched the sunlight fill the little home that had once seemed lost forever. I planted roses in the front yard, just as my husband had loved. For the first time in years, I was living for myself. No one ordered me to clean. No one criticized my cooking. No one treated me like I was invisible. The silence in my home no longer felt empty. Felt like freedom. Meanwhile, Noah's life was falling apart. After the court case, many people learned what had happened. His friends couldn't believe he had introduced his own mother as a maid. Some stopped speaking to him. At work, he struggled to focus. The guilt followed him everywhere. A few weeks later, Noah came to my house again. This time, he wasn't carrying flowers or gifts. He was carrying a toolbox. Mom, he said softly, I noticed your fence needs repairing. If you'll allow me, I'd like to fix it. I looked at him for a long moment. Then I quietly stepped aside. He spent the entire day repairing the fence, cleaning the garden, and fixing a leaking faucet. He never once asked to come inside. When he finished, he simply smiled and said, "Have a good evening, Mom." Then he left. The following weekend he returned. He painted the porch. A week later, he repaired the roof after a heavy storm. Another weekend he planted new flowers beside my husband's favorite tree. Little by little, he stopped trying to earn my forgiveness with words. He started earning it with actions. As for Sophia, the court investigation into the forged documents continued. The evidence showed she had played a major role in arranging the fake paperwork. She was held legally responsible for her actions. Soon afterward, she and Noah separated. Noah never blamed anyone else for his choices. Whenever people asked what had happened, he always answered, "I betrayed the person who loved me the most. The mistake was mine." Hearing those words didn't erase the pain, but they told me he had finally learned the value of honesty. 1 year later on my birthday, Noah knocked on my door once again. This time he wasn't alone. He brought several elderly women from a nearby senior center. He smiled and said, "Mom, I wanted to celebrate with people who remind me of how precious every parent is." Together we shared lunch, laughed, and listened to old stories. As I watched Noah helping those elderly women with kindness and respect, I saw something I hadn't seen in a very long time. The little boy I had raised. After everyone left, Noah stood quietly on the porch. "Mom," he said, "I know I can never change the past." I nodded. "None of us can." He lowered his head. "But I'll spend the rest of my life making sure I never become that person again." I gently placed my hand on his shoulder. "For the first time in many years, I believe you." Tears filled both our eyes. Our relationship would never be exactly the same. Some scars remain forever. But we had taken the first step toward healing. That evening, as I sat on my porch watching the sunset, I thought about everything life had taught me. I realized that love should never require us to lose our dignity. Helping family is a blessing. Allowing them to abuse your kindness is not. Forgiveness is a gift we give ourselves. But trust must always be earned. If my story teaches you anything, let it be this. Never let anyone make you believe that your kindness is weakness. Stand up for yourself with courage. Protect your self-respect. And remember, the greatest revenge is not hatred. The greatest revenge is living a peaceful life, knowing that no one can ever take away your dignity again.